Hi, my name is Justin Pio, and this is my final project video reflection. So I'm in section A16, and my positionality and background is that I am an Asian American, specifically Korean American, born in the United States. I'm a straight male attending UCSD in a current third year that studies business psychology. I'm 20 years old, and I'm part of the middle class of this country. Lastly, I would identify myself as a Christian, which shapes majority of my positionality. Now, moving on to my retrospective analysis, I would like to focus on week 7 and week 10. So, starting with week 7, about labor and race-based nationalism. I found it interesting about the concept how pro-capitalist in California sought out cheap labor power for minority races like the Asians. The white Americans needed workers at this time to build their wealth, and since slavery was officially emancipated after the Civil War, they decided to target Asian immigrants such as Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese, along with Filipinos. So they wouldn't target Mexican immigrants as much because of the history they had with each other, that they already took lands from them, so they were not able to easily control them since they already had some animosity. Also, a lot of Mexicans had similar ideological beliefs since majority of them were Christians, just like the white Americans. These two factors pushed the capitalists to avoid using Mexicans as their tools, and they diverted their attentions to Asian immigrants. Now, most Asian immigrants were willing to be part of this free labor without knowing that they were being coerced. Additionally, Asians who came to US had little knowledge about the supply chain, the market, and the overall social and cultural dynamic of the US. With their limited knowledge, their mindset was to make as much money as possible, gather their wealth, and return back to their homeland. Therefore, they were easily able to be manipulated by the dominant race at that time, which were white American and Western capitalists. So they also did not target the European immigrants since they also had history with them. They were a little smart, they were a lot smarter than the Asians, and Asians knew less, and the Europeans were much more similar to the American citizens at that time because technically in the Revolutionary War, as we know, the Americans were former European settlers. So in the text during that week called Asian Labor in the Development of California and Hawaii by Edna Bonacic, um, it states that still in general, Asian immigrants experience these disabilities in more extreme form and were therefore especially desirable as workers. This is on page 159. The disabilities that they refer to here is that Asian immigrants had limited knowledge and desired intentions for working. Now, as mentioned, these two combinations would not work well because on one hand, they want to make as much money as possible, but on the other hand, they have limited knowledge and almost no knowledge of how to make that in this new foreign nation. So that would inevitably lead them to be controlled by the white capitalists in the West. Moving on to week 10, Professor Gazin touched on multiple subjects regarding capitalism, globalization, race, and immigration. I found that globalization was very interesting, that this term of globalization is used to describe expansion and growth of a nation's wealth, whether it's their economy, political power, and social continuity. This term is consistently used throughout the 20th and 21st century, and these were the periods where America really identified themselves as the powerhouse country in the world. So, since they had so much influence and power in the global power during this time, since they just got past World War One, Two, and the Cold War, and they mostly won all those wars, and they came out with a lot of resources from it. The United States became the forefront of economic power involving trade, relations, and labor class. During this week, in the text called Keywords for American Cultural Studies, a chapter called Globalization by Lisa Lau, the author explains that the rise of Western industrialized modernity, made possible by labor and resources in the New World of America, was, in sense, a relatively recent global interconnection. It's on page 126. So Lowe demonstrates how globalization in the US mainly occurred because of industrial advancements. And during the industrial times, the white capitalists, white Americans, made the working class that involved many Asians, Mexicans, and diverse races to work for them. They received little to no benefits, nowhere near the right amount of compensation because they couldn't make a living. And the middle class, along with the working class, which were essentially the same, were treated very unfairly. They worked under harsh conditions, and they were the foundations that built the this country during that time. But they get little to no recognition nowadays because people forget, and America likes to forget that the harsh treatment, unethical ways that they treated them. So, moving to my personal impact reflection, throughout this quarter, I learned many concepts, ideas, and history regarding ethnic labor and expansion of lands. However, the concept of capitalism in the United States has always interested me, and I found it very surprising how unethical it was for the foundation of capitalism that was created during that time. Knowing that the current system of this country is still capitalism and how it may serve to inspire individuals to strive for wealth and success, it brings a sense of unity that people can come out here and reach the American dream and create as much money and wealth as possible. And that's the identity that they create. However, now knowing that how the immigrants are treated, especially the Asian, as I am an Asian myself, and how they're exploited, shines light to how the foundation of a prosperous concept such as capitalism can be unethical and controversial. And while I may not know, while I may not be able to change the past or the current capitalist system in the US, I at least know the history of how capitalism came to be. So that's my video. Thank you.